All right, welcome in 8th grade. This is your bonus video regarding modeling things that are the same but have changes and differences. So, we're talking about the states of matter. Now, what you must understand is that this is something that is changing. This is something that is not changing. So the idea is, how can we model something that is not changing when it has already changed? So the idea is that you must understand matter is made up of atoms, and the way that these atoms are organized creates a different state of matter. Now, these atoms being close together, tightly packed in a regular pattern is what we call a solid. Now, if you take those same atoms and you spread them out just a little bit, and now these atoms can move back and forth between one another, you now have changed the state, and the state becomes a liquid. Now, these atoms that used to be solid in a tightly packed pattern are not in a tightly packed pattern. They do not have a regular pattern. They are close together, but some are far enough away to where they can slide past one another. And finally, if you separate all of these atoms to the point to where they rarely interact, you create what you call a gas. So the most important aspect behind looking at these different ways to represent atoms is to know that they are different states of matter. Let's take this middle one here for a second. A liquid is very important to all organisms. For us as humans, water is one of the most important substances we can consume. Why? Because there is another form of a liquid within our bodies called blood. Your blood has a lot of water within it. So you can have the liquid form of water in you. You can also have a liquid form called blood within you. You can also have many different types of atoms organized into a position where they can slide past each other and again be labeled as a state called liquid. Now, gases are things that are moving. Gases move so quickly that they do not hang around. Now, the reason why they do not hang around is because they do not have a pattern they have to follow. And they can move freely past one another. But gases choose to go their own directions always. So they will typically avoid things, which is why you can pass gas. If you were not able to pass gas, you become what you call constipated, and you can feel that gas or air within your belly or lower intestines. Until you can push that gas out of you, you're going to feel discomfort. But once you find the ability to pass this gas from one spot to the next, then you have relief. Now, gases must have a container. In order for a gas to be contained, there must be something external to it that is moving it. Rocks, they do not have to be contained. They create their own container. They have a solid pattern. They cannot move past one another. That means they will retain their shape. So even if I take a solid like a rock and I put it within a container called a bucket, I can still fill that container up with rocks, and the rocks will remain in the state called solid. The bucket will also remain as a state of matter called a solid. So now you have two solids interacting. One is interacting as a solid, the other is interacting as a liquid. The rocks within that bucket are now close together, but they do not have a regular pattern. The only pattern that they carry is that provided by the container. So, in other words, rocks can fall out of your bucket. Now, gases are constantly moving. You cannot capture them unless you have a container. Now, if I breathe, the gas is now being contained within my lungs. If I exhale, the gas has now left my lungs. So, in this example, my lungs will be the container, and my lungs allow for the gas to move in and for the gas to move out. So, gases are without a regular pattern and are separated, and they move at high speeds. In other words, they do not sit still. Instead of just vibrating like solids, or instead of vibrating and sliding like liquids, gases are in a constant state of motion that is not vibration or sliding. So, this state of being is what we all call stillness. When we are still, we are moving so fast because we are surrounded by everything else, but we're not interacting. And that is the whole idea of a gas. The non interaction between its environment creates the ability to move quickly. And when I say quickly, I really mean to move in a degree of freedom of its choice. It has the option of which way to go. Liquids are forced into a direction which forces the atoms to slide across one another, whereas rocks, they retain their shape, and so if you throw a rock, it stays a rock, and the atoms don't change. So, this is your video on the states of matter. See you next time.